Hi, I'm Peter Coleman. This video will help you to get started with the IBM Db2 Data Management Console. With the console, you can manage all your Db2 databases from a single screen. It continuously monitors your databases, sends alerts for performance and availability issues, and can help you to optimize the performance of your Db2 databases. At its core, the console is a set of services that run continuously on a central machine. Each user of the console connects from their own web browser. The services make use of a Db2 database as a repository to store configuration, user, and historical monitoring data. The service connects to each database you want to monitor or manage, up to hundreds from a single Db2 Data Management Console service machine. There are three steps that we will cover: downloading and installing the Db2 Data Management Console code and starting the service, connecting the Db2 Data Management Console to a required Db2 10.5 or higher database that will store historical monitoring data, and connecting to one Db2 database to manage and monitor. Let's get started and download the console code. You can find the download location in the console community page, along with lots of other useful resources. Enter ibm.biz/db2console in your web browser. Then select Download 3.1 now. If you are not already signed into your IBM account, you may need to take a minute to complete that step. From here, you will be asked a few questions about how you intend on using the Db2 Data Management Console and ask for your agreement to the licensing terms. The next screen gives you options of several different operating systems. I'm going to install the console service on my laptop running Mac OS. You can also choose between the command line installer or a web install that includes a user interface to guide you through the steps. I'm choosing the web installer, but I'll demonstrate both installation methods. If you downloaded a command line install package, first unpack or unzip the file. Call directory or CD into the unpacked or unzipped directory IBM Data MGMT console and run the setup command. Now you will need to provide the user ID and password you want to use as the default administrator for the system. Once the setup is complete, it takes a few minutes for the initial startup of the console server. The default ports for the service are 11.0.80 and 11.0.81. You can override these by customizing the setup.conf file before running the setup script. You can also choose to use the web installer. Double-click on the exec tar or DMG file and run the installer program. You will start by reviewing and agreeing to the license terms. Then you'll provide a user ID and password for the default administrator for the system. You can then accept or change the port used to access the console service. Like the command line method, it takes a few minutes for the initial startup of the console server. On the final page, you can select or copy the URL and port you will use to access the console server from your browser. First, we need to log in using the administrator ID you set up during installation. Now we will connect to a Db2 database that we will use as a repository of configuration, user, and historical data. You will need the URL, port, and database name of a Db2 10.5 or higher database. You will also need a user ID on the database that has at least DB ADM with data access privileges. That user ID will be used to create a new schema in the database that will store configuration information for the console as well as long-term historical data collected to better understand your Db2 databases. Once the repository schema is created, we can move on to the next step. The first page you will see is the Console Enterprise homepage. This starts as an empty list. Start by selecting the link in the message at the top of the page. Next, you can add a connection to your first database. Start by giving the connection profile a name. You will need the host, port, and database name as well. Choose Enable Data Collection to enable continuous monitoring of the database. Select Operate to explore and manage database objects and use the SQL editor. You can choose to enable either or both. For operations, if you do not choose to save the operational credentials in the repository, users will be prompted for a user ID and password each time they try to connect to the database. Before you save your settings, you can test the connection to the database. Now that all three steps are finished, let's make sure everything's working. After you have created your first database connection, select the Home icon in the top left corner of the screen. You should see your new database connection listed on the monitoring homepage. Since it will take a few minutes for the initial monitoring data collection to start, let's confirm that you can explore this database. Select the database name. You should see a list of schemas in the database. By default, the console hides schemas that are part of the Db2 catalog. You can show them by selecting Show System Schemas. You can also search for specific tables by typing a term in the search box. Now, let's go back and check that monitoring is working correctly. It usually takes about 5 minutes for the initial monitoring data collection to complete. Select the Home icon at the top left of the screen. By hovering over the database connection name, you should now be able to see the connection details. You should also see values for CPU, memory, and storage usage. Unless there is an active workload on your database, the other metrics will likely be 0. If you select the database name now, you should arrive at the Database Monitoring Summary page. Everything looks ready to go. Please make sure to go to ibm.biz/db2console to find out more, connect with the console community, and share your thoughts.